the other two speakers didn't go into in depth, like how cannabis can help migraines and some of the things that he sees in his practice. So Dr. Joseph Cohen, thank you.
Hi, I have no slides today, so I'm scheduled for 5 minutes, but somebody's going to have to shut me up. Especially after listening to two great talks today. And I just want to thank Michelle and Melanie for doing all this. As a cannabis clinician, it's been really difficult to see this community, or it's been great to see the community come together, but it's been a difficult journey to be able to have a nonprofit, to be able to make all these connections, to be able to start doing research. If you guys have the ability to help impact in any way, whether it be financially or with just going out and volunteering your expertise, I think that'd be amazing. So having said that, I'm going to give a real quick talk about migraine, because there's a couple other issues that were raised today that I want to address if you don't kick me off the stage. Okay. Migraines. I'm a migraine sufferer. Are any migraine sufferers in the building here? Yeah, there's several. Actually, somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 million Americans suffer from migraines. So it's a huge problem. We see it a lot in our practice. It's one of the indications we use under the pain issue. Obviously, I can't prove that somebody who comes in has migraines. I'm sure there's been a few patients who stuck in to say they have migraines, but who is it for me to say that you don't have a migraine? I'd be very upset if I went to a doctor and they told me I didn't have migraines when I know I do. From personal experience, I just wanted to say that just earlier this week on Tuesday, I woke up with a migraine. And on Sunday, somebody handed me a little bit of Durban haze, and I tried it. 5 minutes, migraine gone. I woke up with it in the morning. By the time I got to the office to see patients, it was long gone, and I had no migraine. Durban, in general, Durban poison, and whether it be Durban haze, which had an amazing result for me. I think the Durbans are something special when it comes to migraine. I've been telling patients this for over 6 years now, since I started cannabis medicine, and I actually started using Durban myself for migraines on a fairly regular basis to knock out a migraine. It was a whole first year that I started using cannabis for migraines, which was 6 years ago, where I never had to take an Imitrex. And I get about two migraines a week on average. So I'm a failure when it comes to the fact that low-dose daily use of cannabis can prevent migraines. It hasn't prevented mine, but it certainly has many of my patients. I had a patient in earlier this week who told me that I recommended that she use low-dose daily cannabis prophylactically, because what we're seeing is that if you use a little bit every day, you're actually preventing migraines, and that's for actually a significant number of patients. She said that as soon as she started using cannabis within 2 weeks, and this is a very chronic, real serious chronic migraine person, it was having a real negative impact on her life. After 2 weeks of using cannabis, she hasn't had a migraine since. And this has been at least, how many years? Several years that she started doing this. And we have many patients where low-dose daily use of cannabis can prevent. Now, that's not strain-specific as far as I know, because we're seeing people use pretty much any strain they want. They can use an indica for sleep. Durban is a sativa dominant strain. You can use an indica for sleep and just use it before bed to help you sleep and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So low-dose daily use, I think, is a great way to go. I think it's more than migraines. I think that low-dose daily use, we're going to find out, is going to have a lot of other preventive effects. And I think there's enough indication now to suggest that because it's neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory, we're going to see things like senile dementia, Alzheimer's, probably be actually prevented by people who use low-dose daily use, but that study obviously has not been done yet. But I'm pretty confident when it's done, that's what we're going to see, just by knowing the way that cannabis works. So having said that, when you have a migraine, the best way to try to knock one out is to inhale, because inhalation is your quickest method. I don't recommend smoking, I recommend vaporizing. I don't recommend vaporizing oil. For that, I recommend vaporizing flour. So just get your whatever vaporizer out, flour vaporizer, and have it loaded with some Durban haze and just use it as soon as your migraine is starting. I have mine loaded, I have 2 packs, one with whatever strain I want to use for whatever, and one loaded with Durban haze. I have it on my nightstand. If I start getting a migraine early in the morning, I get my Durban haze out, which used to be Durban poison, and now I just inhale it. So that's the 2 different ways you would use cannabis. One to treat migraines, that's going to be your Durban, onset, inhale to try to knock it out, and the other is prophylactically. Having said that, I did mention that I think that low-dose daily use is going to be seen as a preventive for many, many chronic diseases because of the lack of, because it's an anti-inflammatory, first of all, and it is neuroprotective, which we've known about for years, and that was discussed earlier. The other thing I want to mention was that, I think that there's a place for clinicians, a very important place for clinicians like myself, in the cannabis world of doing studies, although I've never done a study in my life and I have no intention to, because I'm a clinician. I leave that for the smart people. I just see patients and try to see patients and treat patients every day. But after doing this for over 6 years, you can't help but notice what cannabis does. I mean, I used to see between 80 and 100 patients a week. Now, because of new guidelines with the state, we've gone to much longer appointments with a much more thorough history and an exam and other things that we're doing because the guidelines for physicians has changed as of last November 19th when a letter came out from the state. And hopefully that'll stop some of the mills, doctors who have absolutely no knowledge of cannabis or just making a quick buck for a 2-minute visit. That needs to stop because it's bringing us all down. If you're going to do this, you need to be doing it legitimately. You need to study this plant. You need to have an idea, and you need to start tracking what's going on. That's the next area that we need to work on is tracking. We have no ability in our practice right now, although we want to start tracking all of our patients because we don't have the manpower. We've got to compete with mills that charge very little for a visit when we're doing a full visit. And we have a nurse on staff, patients and all of that. So we need to start tracking. We're going to need some help. And I think that with the community of people here, with what Impact is doing, I think we're going to start having the ability to start collecting data, and I think that's huge. So we're there for any of you guys here who want to start getting involved with clinicians. Dr. Burke is sitting in the front row here, and she's with me in practice. We have another doc who just joined us on a part-time basis who is a physiatrist, not a psychiatrist, a physiatrist. So her actual specialty is pain management and addiction, and we are getting people off their narcotics, their benzos, and all of that. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in the talk earlier was about, we mentioned glutamated cytotoxicity in the brain. And this is a very important subject that I wasn't going to address today, but I can't help myself. Glutamated cytotoxicity is seen in all neurodegenerative diseases. It's seen in MS, Tourette's, ALS, Parkinson's. If there's a neurodegenerative disease, there's glutamated cytotoxicity in the brain. Glutamate goes into a hyperexcitable state, and what it does, it starts killing brain cells. We also see this in stroke victims, and we also see this with concussions. About maybe 3 weeks ago, I met with Jake Plummer. He was a former Bronco NFL quarterback, and we had a talk. I met with Kane Coulter, who's going to play with the Rams. He's involved with the collegiate level athletes, even though he's going to play pro. And Jake is trying to work with CBD, and I think that's a mistake, with using with the Stanley brothers using their Charlotte's Web. I don't think this is just about CBD. I think this is about CBD and THC combined. And I think when we start looking to try to do this with CBD only, we're making a huge mistake. And what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for failure. And that's not okay, because you need this whole plant. You need the THC with it. You need marijuana. You don't need hemp when it comes to protecting your brain. You need the whole plant with CBD. There's different ways that they work in the brain. Just a real quick update on that. We used to tell patients that CBD doesn't bind to receptors. Well, wrong. I first started out saying that CBD competed the old story with THC for receptors, and maybe that was the reason that you had less psychoactivity when you use, THC and CBD combined. That was wrong. Then we were told that studies were showing that no, CBD doesn't bind to receptors at all. Well, now we're realizing maybe that's wrong. And the CB1 receptors, which are predominantly in the brain, there's two different binding sites. There's what we call an orthosteric binding site, which is a lock and key that THC fits into, and so does anandamide and 2-AG, our own endocannabinoids. And then there's what we call allosteric binding sites, and this is relatively new information. The allosteric binding sites, what they do is they actually change the configuration of the orthosteric binding site in a way, and I don't know how this works, so that's not my area, but in a way that it actually decreases the psychoactivity. Doesn't mean you're decreasing the effect, but you're decreasing the psychoactivity. So this is probably the reason that we're seeing that people use more CBD and less THC are having less psychoactivity, which is a great thing when you're trying to treat certain diseases, because a lot of my patients are elderly and they don't want to feel like they're stoned. So I just wanted to bring that information up and just state that there's so much research, my head is spinning. I rely on people who are out here who are in the research world to help me with this, and I'm here with a ton of patients. Dr. Burke and I were speaking about this earlier, and we would like to be able to contribute to the research. So when you get your mobile van driving around, we've got plenty of patients as long as we can give them some kind of incentive to do this other than out of the goodness of their hearts. We got plenty of patients, we have a full staff, we have a nurse, we can do whatever is necessary to try to see what their blood levels look like so we can go to the next step. And I think that's all I really wanted to mention today.
Thank you so much. I want to apologize. You're a DO, right? And so, not an MP. So, so I also wanted to thank Dr. Cohen for joining our Scientific and Medical Advisory Board. He's a huge help for impact, so thank you so much. On that vein, any other researchers or doctors that want to get into clinical cannabis research, as well as industry leaders too, anyone that understands the power of cannabis research and how we can use that to help patients, you're more than welcome to give us an email at info@theimpactnetwork.org and share your experience and knowledge with us as we try to change the world. So, were there any questions for Dr. Cohen before we move on?
Go ahead. You do.
I was wondering what you would recommend for dosages. I think doing around 200 milligrams as a starting dose. Doesn't really seem to be much effective for me, and I don't have really less.
Is that an edible form?
Yeah, I do the edible oil or
Okay. There are probably three reasons for that. One could be a tolerance issue. What we see, and Dr. Burke alluded to this earlier, is people who dab, and I see patients who dab 15 to 20 times a day. You know, they need hundreds of milligrams of edibles just to have an effect, and the reason for that is they burn out their receptors. And it takes a while to get those receptors to return. Second reason is GI absorption. That if you do an edible form, you may have an issue with something with absorption of nutrients through your small intestine, and that can have an effect. We see this with patients who have autoimmune disease, etc., who have things like fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, etc., because they have leaky gut and then they don't get absorption. And the third reason is that you have to pass, when you do an edible, you're passing it through your liver, and it has to go through what's called the cytochrome P450 system in the liver, and when that happens, not everybody processes edibles that way. So when people tell me they need that high dose of an edible, I suggest that they find a different form. Maybe it's a tincture where it gets absorbed on their tongue, maybe it's a transdermal patch, or maybe it's inhalation or whatever. But it may be that edibles, maybe you're spending a lot of money on edibles because you're not. The absorbing it properly and it's not working for you. Yeah.
One thing that I've been looking at is exactly the same thing. We see a lot of patients that are that I recommend microdosing to various symptoms. And it seems to be working very well with this microdosing. A lot of people are actually feeling an effect, with that, but with microdosing, sometimes over time, you get those effects. And some people say, I'm not feeling anything, but that's the thing, you're not supposed to feel anything. But I just came back from Israel, where I looked at some research and some products coming out, with different alternative delivery methods. Some people like American Distance here are claiming to be transdermal. I don't know how much of that is feasible with the size of the molecule. I see other companies coming up with some other stuff. One of the things that I looked at is really what happens. Nobody can tell me where does cannabis get absorbed into your intestinal system. Is it in the small intestine? Is it in the stomach? Because we were looking at extended release products, and it's nobody can tell that at this point in time. I wonder if anybody heard anything. Where does it get absorbed?
It gets absorbed in the small intestine. That's where everything gets absorbed in the small intestine. So once you have any compromise in that area, it can affect absorption.
So we looked at the product that looks like an accordion instead of pill. That accordion opens in the small intestine and actually stays there for 12 hours. So basically, and then gets out. So basically, that's going to be a slow release mechanism, but I think it's going to be very effective.
The effect is everything goes through the liver.
Yeah.
Remember, everything goes through that meat, goes through the liver. It's not processed. The B450 system is off, which would make you up 10, 20% of the people. All of a sudden, all hell's breaking loose from you. But under the umbrella, an animal will be 80% of the time absorbed in a pretty good way.
Now, it sounds like, what Stratus is doing, where you may need less to have a better absorption effect, may be a good potential route. I know that Quicksilver Scientific, which is out of Lafayette, they're doing CBD hemp oil right now, called Colorado hemp oil, while they're working on trying to get a myth going. But they have a sublingual, which is amazing. They have this guy does things in liposomal delivery systems and nanoparticles, and the absorption is so much better sublingually, and then you swallow it, and it just gets absorbed on the way down as well. And that's Chris Shade, who has Quicksilver, and they're hoping to be able to come up with. We've spoken a lot about this, some ratios of CBD to THC, and I am a full believer in full plant extract all the way. I don't think that necessarily breaking things down and combining them. I think the plant is the plant. We should use it the way it is. I think we can do experimentation. We can do research where this is very valuable research, but the plant is great the way it is, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Joe.